Hi guys, it's Heather with Morning with Scissors, and today we are doing the January sub box number 27 tutorial. So sub box number 27, that's January 2023. And here we go. Let's see what's inside the box. Now you did see in the opening what it is that we are making, which is that welcome to our home 12-inch hanging sign with some greenery and a bow. So let's have a look inside here and get started on that tutorial. All right, so you might also notice that we are shooting the video a different way now. We are doing a landscape video instead of a portrait because apparently YouTube prefers a landscape video, and I guess it uploads much faster and the quality is better and all of that. So we're gonna try it, see how we like it, and if we don't, we'll go back to the other way. Okay, so here we are. Here's what's in your box. Now, mine is not probably bagged the way that yours is going to be. Mine is pretty loose in here. So yours might be bagged a little bit differently, but you have all of the same stuff. We have a sprig of greenery. We have a section of ribbon. Now your ribbon will not be the same. We did order you guys a special houndstooth ribbon, and that's just not in at the time of the tutorial. So we are using house ribbon, and but yours will vary just slightly. It's just a different pattern, same colors. You have a bag of beads. You have a baby wipe. You have a quarter sponge, yellow sponge. You have a white wedge. You have a length of jute. There are a couple of zip ties, one long, one short. You have a mini glue. A mini glue. Now this is a disposable one, so once you use it, there's no cap for it. You just throw that away when you're done. And then you have 3 paints. You have white, black, and brown. And then of course you have your backer board and you have your letters, your words. Okay, so I'm gonna set my pizza box aside, but we are going to use that later on. We're gonna cut a piece of it off and use that for to make our tassels from our jute. So don't let that go very far. But so what I want to say real quick before we get started is you can, because there's no stencil in this, if you don't like our paint color selection, which we try to be universal, if you don't like our paint color selection, you can use acrylic paint. Now acrylic paint are those 2-ounce bottles that you get at Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Michaels. So you can use those in place of the paint that we give you, all right? So a few things you're gonna want to have handy. You're gonna want a pair of scissors. You're gonna want a pair of wire cutters. Wire cutters are these things with the sharp blade on them to snap this sprig of greenery apart. Now, quite often you can use scissors on those, but it will dull your scissors. We don't recommend it. It puts like a little gouge in your scissors. So unless you have a pair of junk ones that you don't really care about. You're gonna want some baby wipes. Baby wipes are always handy, and you're gonna need some painter's tape, okay? So it doesn't matter the width of your painter's tape. I just grabbed this roll. This one's about 1.25 inches, but just grab yourself some painter's tape. All right, so first things first, I am going to paint my backer board. Now at this point, you have a couple of options. You can paint your backer board. We're gonna stain the top part, paint the bottom part. I'm gonna do the stain part first. Now you can stain it without masking off for the first part, because it doesn't matter if you go over the line a little bit with the stain because the paint's gonna cover it up. But if you want to go ahead and mask off your line right now, then mask that off, and you would mask it off on this side of the line, okay? I'm not going to do that because I don't feel like there's much need for that. So I'm just going to use my baby wipe from my bag, and I'm gonna open that up, and I'm gonna grab my brown paint. And And I'm just going to wrap the baby wipe around a couple of fingers and dip it in the brown paint. And then I am just going to wipe that brown paint onto my backer board. And try to get a nice smooth finish on it. Go ahead and grab more paint when your baby wipe is running low. You don't want to keep wiping if you don't have enough paint on your wipe, because all it does is start to wipe off what you did get on your board. And we're trying just to get a nice even coating here. All right, so then once you got it all on there, just go ahead and smooth it out to try and get it even. You can fold your baby wipe over again to get a nice clean spot so that you are not just peeling your baby wipe and getting all that fuzzy back onto your board. Okay, there you go. That's all I'm gonna do with that guy right there. Now, I wanna let this dry just for a minute. It's not gonna take very long to let it dry, but while it dries, I'm gonna just work on my words. So I'm gonna push this out of my way for now, and I am going to bring my words in front of me, my words and my letters. Now, if you want, you can take a piece of that painter's tape that you have, and you can stick it to your table like that, and you can put your letters on there to hold them in place. That's so they don't bounce all over the place while you're painting them. I'm trying, you can see that I'm not putting the whole entire letter on the tape. And that's because the tape is really sticky and the letters are pretty delicate. And when I pull the letters off, I don't want to worry about snapping them in half. So I'm only putting enough of the letter or the word on the tape just to hold it in place, right? Just to hold it in place. Okay, so now you're going to use your white wedge and your white paint. And we're going to dip our white wedge into our paint and then pounce off onto your table cover or to your pizza box. And we're going to pounce the paint onto our words. A nice light coat. We're going to let that dry, and then we're going to put a second coat on. Usually by the time we get to the end of the first coat, we can start back over where we started because it'll be dry if you put your paint on light enough. If you're a heavy painter, you don't want to go back over top of it while it's wet, because all you're gonna do is pull that paint off, okay? So if it didn't dry, don't go back over it until it's dry. All right, I'm gonna actually put a third coat on because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like mine needs a third coat. If you feel like yours needs a third coat, go ahead and put a third coat. If not, then 2's good, and just sit tight for a second and we'll move on. All right, we are done with our white paint, and I'm just gonna move my letters to the side so they can finish drying and until I need them again. And then I'm going to pull my backer board back in front of me. And this time I'm going to use my yellow sponge and my black paint. And now is when you will need your painter's tape. So I'm going to tear off just a length of my painter's tape, and I'm going to line it up on the stained side, so on the brown stained side. And I'm just going to line it up with that line that's scored on there. And I'm lining it up with that line, and I'm going to smooth that down so I know that it's stuck. And then I'll just wrap the ends right around the back for a second. And then we are going to use the soft side of our yellow sponge, and we're going to paint the bottom of our board. So, nice thin coat. Remember, it will dry very quickly. And then we can put on our second coat. Now I do find it helpful to go around the outside edge of the board, and then to start swiping across. So make sure you're swiping across from one side to the other. And make sure that you don't have any puddles or pools or edges of paint on your sponge. Okay, from your sponge. So you can see it's not fully covered, but that's okay. And I've worked out all of the bumpers. We call them bumpers. There's no big creases. You can see there's a little bit of one right there, but that's actually not, that's not really that bad at all. It looks worse on camera than it is. And we're gonna let that dry for a second. And as soon as that's dry, we'll be back. Okay, we're back and our first coat is dry. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put on our second coat. Same thing, we're just gonna swipe around that outside edge and then we're gonna start swiping across. All right, 2 coats is all that you should need on this guy. So we are going to let that second coat dry and then we'll be back to move on to the next steps. Okay, we are back. Our second coat is dry. So we're going to go ahead and just peel that tape off of there. And there you will see you have a perfectly straight and very crisp line between your stain and your paint. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and we are going to glue our letters onto our board. Now, you can still see, if you tip it just right in the light, you can still see the engraved area where it helps you to line your pieces up, okay? So we're going to use our disposable glue. Just screw that red cap onto the glue itself, and this cap will tap this, it will puncture this tube of glue and be ready to paint. Or I'm sorry, be ready to glue. Okay, so we're going to gently remove our letters from our tape. You have to take those off very carefully so you don't snap your words or break your letters. And it might be a good idea to clean your hands so you don't get black paint or whatever color paint you might have on your hands at the moment onto your letters, okay, your words. So when you're pressing down with the glue, if you have paint on your hands, you could transfer that onto your letters. So get that paint off. Okay. I'm going to turn my board sideways. Turn your board however you have to so that you can see your engraved area so it hits the sun or the light just right. So for me, because I'm sitting in front of the window, it's best for me to angle it like this. Now I'm going to put the glue on the back of my words. And remember that you don't want a ton of glue. You just want your glue right in the middle of your letters. And if you get any kind of puddle of glue, dab that right off on your pizza box, your table cover, or on a paper towel, because excess glue will squish out, and once it squishes out onto your backer board, there's no way to cover that up. So you don't want that to happen. And then you're going to take and you're just going to position your word where it goes over top of your letters. And then press down. Now you'll see that I did just get a little bit of glue on my backer board there. I'm going to go ahead and dab that with a little bit of black paint, but chances are slim that it will cover. All right, and just keep going till you get all of your letters glued on. See what I mean about needing to make sure your hands are clean? Can you see that in the camera? I got a little bit of black paint on my white letter there. So, but once again, make sure your hands are clean. And then my last word here. And then you are done with your glue, so you can get rid of that, or if you just put it up someplace, it won't dry out for a long time, so you can still use it even though it doesn't have a cap. All right, so we're gonna take the thicker piece of jute strand that you have in your box, and we are going to thread each of the ends through the hole from the front to the back. And then we're gonna bring the ends together, and we are going to make sure that the handle is as long as we want it. And then we're gonna pinch the two loose ones at the top of where that loop ends on the front. Just pinch the two back pieces together and tie an overhand knot. And then we're gonna trim off the excess there. We're gonna pull that knot to the back of one of the holes, and then we're gonna bring both of those strands, those loops, up and together. All right, so there is our sign, but now we have to work on the rest of it. Okay, so let's make our tassels. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cut off 2 pieces of 12-inch. I'm not gonna measure it, but it's the length of a ruler about. You can use your sign if you wanna measure the circle, the widest part of the circle, okay? That's 12 inches. And then you're gonna cut 2 pieces at about 24 inches. So that's double the length of your sign, okay? Perfect. Okay. And we're just going to set those aside. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is work on our tassel and our beads. And if you want, you can take your pizza box and in the upper corner, you can cut off a small square here, about 3 inches by 3 inches. I'm just going to use my fingers. It's pretty easy to do these, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do that. I'm going to either wrap it around your cardboard or wrap it around your fingers. I'm just going to wrap it around my fingers. I'm using my thumb to hold the end down till I can get started here. And I'm going to do 6 full wraps, so that's about 12 strands total, okay, front and back, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay, that's all I'm going to do there. And then I'm going to slide them off of my fingers, keeping those loops all together, and I'm going to cut that bottom loop off. Okay, now I'm going to take the longer piece that I cut, and I'm going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to cow hitch all of these strands together. Okay, so that's just you putting the 2 ends through all the loops on the top or bottom, whichever, of the pieces that you had wrapped around your fingers. And then I'm going to take the 2 ends and I'm going to feed them through the loop. All right, so all I'm doing is cow hitching all of those loops together. Okay. And then I'm going to take the shorter piece that I cut, the 12-inch piece. Now this part gets a little tricky. I'm going to take this and lay it on my loops with it long enough that it's level to the bottom of my loops. And then I'm going to grab all of it, okay? And I'm going to come back and make a loop here. So I'm bringing it backwards, and there's a loop here. And then I'm going to hold that down, and I'm going to wrap all of this. I'm going to wrap that end piece, the last piece I have left, the long piece. I'm going to wrap it around all of the loops, and I'm going to keep wrapping. I'm going to wrap from this side to the loop, okay? So here's all of our tassel loops, and here's the loop we made with the 12-inch piece. And I'm just going to wrap this around several times, I don't know, 6 or 7. Okay, now I'm going to take my end piece and I'm going to feed it through that loop that I made with this piece. I'm still using the whole, this is all that piece, that 12-inch piece. I'm going to push that in through there. And then I'm going to take the other end, the end that I made level with this end, and I'm going to pull it tight. And can you see what it's doing? It's cinching down. See, that's cinching down all of these strands, so they're going to stay tight. You're not tying any knots. And you just pull it a little tight, and it's going to pull it inside of this. Okay, that's it. So now I'm going to take and I'm going to trim this top one, and then I'm going to cut all these loops apart, and I'm going to trim them up so they're even. Now we might trim that some more. It just depends. We'll have to see. Okay, so there's my little tassel. Now you got to do that again. All right, so let's do that again. We're going to take and start it on our fingers, holding with our thumb, and we're going to wrap 6 full wraps so we have 12 full strands. Okay, then we're going to pull it off of our hands, and we're going to cut it to separate it from the rest of the jute. Then we're going to take our longer piece, we're going to fold it in half, and we're going to feed the ends through all the loops. And then we're going to feed the ends through their own loop. the end of their own loop. There you go. Cow hitching or lark's head knot, okay? Tighten that down. Then we're gonna take our 12-inch piece and we're gonna lay it onto our 12 loops, our 6 full loops, our 12 strands. Okay, so you can see it's at the end. It's just a little bit longer so I can identify it easier. And then we're gonna make a loop right here. We're making it a little bit shorter than all the rest of the loops, once again, so we can identify it. And then we're gonna take the long end that's left here and we're gonna start wrapping it around all of these tassel loops. You do see I have to switch hands because I'm wrapping this way, but I have to start it so I'm holding it all together and then switching hands. And I'm just gonna do, I don't know, I just do a bunch of wraps. I don't know, 7, 8. Okay, then we're gonna take the end and we're gonna push it through that loop that we made when we started. Okay, that's why I make that loop just a little bit lower so I can see it, except it's kind of thick and it's, okay, then we're gonna pull that strand through. Then we're gonna come back and we're gonna grab that end strand and then we're gonna hold both and we're gonna pull. Now this one tightens that loop and then you're gonna tighten it. As you pull it through, you're pulling it through all of those wraps you made so it's hidden underneath them, okay? So you're pulling both of these strands in opposite directions and it tightens it all down. All right, so we're just gonna trim that top strand off and then we're gonna cut apart the loops at the bottom and then we'll trim off the longer pieces. Now we'll probably trim these tassels more because we don't want them that long. We want them nice and short. Okay, so now we're gonna take each of our tassels and we're gonna thread our beads onto them. You can thread as many beads on as you want to each one. You don't have to have the same amount on each one. You can have 5 on one, 2 on the other. You can have 5 and 5. You can have whatever. You probably got around 12 beads. So you could do 6 and 6. Now, if you're having trouble threading your jute through your beads, I can show you a trick. Okay, let me show you a trick. You have to be fast though. You can take your super glue and you can squeeze some of it onto the ends of your jute. And then very quickly you can twist it between your fingers to dry it and make kind of like a needle. But you have to move fast so you don't stick your fingers together. Okay. Now your fingers will be coated in super glue, but that will wear off quickly and you can always use acetone to get it off. But see what it did? It made like a little sharp needle to thread my beads on with, which is, it does make it really easy, you guys. So let's go ahead and do that on this one. Okay, so now that we have our beads threaded, we're gonna decide how we want those to hang on our sign. You may not have done 6 and 6 or 5 and 5. Now, do you want them to hang even or one lower than the other? I want you to decide that right now and lay them on your sign how you want them, and then measure, pull them down as far as you want them to come, and just make a pinch with your fingers like I am where these holes are, okay? Just approximate there. And I'm going to take both of my strands and I'm going to tie them in an overhand knot together at that spot where I pinched. Perfect. So now you can trim your tassels where you want them. I actually think all I'm going to do is just trim about 1/2 inch off of each of my tassels. I like them. I just want them just a tiny little bit shorter. And I'm gonna measure them against each other and just make sure they're about the same length. And then I'm gonna just poof them up a little bit. Perfect. Okay. We are going to do our greenery and our cluster and get it all put on our board now. All right, so you have your ribbon and it may come folded in 3 equal sections, but if it does not, fold it into 3 equal sections, okay? That's pretty easy to do. So first, just fold one end backwards and then take the other end and fold that backwards. And then just move your folds left or right until you get your strands or your sections the same width. And then you are going to fold them all together up like a taco. And we're going to cut from the folded side out, up and out, okay? We're separating these strands and we're making a dovetail up and out. And then that gives us 3 pieces. If you didn't quite get to the edge or the corner all the way, they'll be stuck together still and you have to cut them apart like I did there. All right, so we have those 3 pieces. All right, so we're gonna take and we're gonna put our greenery like this. I think 4 strands is plenty, or 4 sprigs is plenty. Yeah, exactly. That's what's gonna happen. You guys are not gonna get this whole thing. 4 sprigs is good. All right, so we're gonna wrap those together like that in our hand. We're gonna hold on to those. And then we are also going to, you gotta work together on this. You're gonna use your black zip tie. Okay, your black zip tie. We're gonna take our bow, we're gonna hold this in one hand, and we're gonna take our ribbons and we're gonna make an X. And then we're gonna lay one across the center like that. All right, so we've got an X in the back and then this laid across the center. All right. And then we're gonna pick all that up and we're gonna lay it over top of where we got our greenery and pinch it all together. And we're gonna take our black zip tie and we're gonna wrap around it. And we're gonna start cinching that down. Once we get it pretty close, we're gonna start adjusting things a little bit. All right, so now we're gonna pinch our ribbons in there. I don't want the ribbons to wrap backwards around themselves. I want them to be pinched. So almost like an accordion in there. All right, well, you can see my greenery fell out. It's all right, we're gonna shove it back in. All right, perfect, perfect, perfect. All right, cinch that zip tie down tight because you're putting in all of that greenery and those ribbons, and trim that off. All right, now you're going to take your small zip tie and you're gonna come up from the back to the front through one of those holes. Okay, you're gonna loop this piece, your beaded tassels, around the zip tie. So it's just sitting on, the zip ties coming through the middle of both of them. And then you're gonna feed the zip tie through the back of the other zip tie, the black zip tie that you put your greenery and bow in. It might be kind of tough, but get it in there. Okay, so once you have that zip tie through there, through this other zip tie, you're gonna take the end of it and feed it back down through the other hole. Back down through the other hole in the backer board. So this is what it looks like on the back now. You're gonna push the head down till it hits the back of the backer board, all the way down to that circle. It won't go through the circle. And then you're gonna take the end and feed it through the zip tie head so you can cinch it closed. And then just make sure it's all tight. And then you're gonna trim that off. And then you're gonna come to the front and you're gonna have to trim off this piece right here from your tassel. So your tassel is threaded down into that zip tie. You're gonna just trim off that excess, and then you're gonna shape your ribbons. Where they're supposed to be. Pull your handle up. Just move your greenery around to where it's supposed to be. And there you have your sign. Good job, guys. Hope you love this one. This one's really cute. It would make a great gift if you don't have a space for it. And remember, you can always change the colors. All right, thank you.